Well, hello. I'm once again with you. I'd like to discuss the current situation in Ukraine. I haven't been on YouTube because I think my initial analysis is still correct. I think Russia has suffered a strategic defeat. I think it's unfolding, regardless of what happens now. I think Russia will not be able to meet its maximalist goals. It will not be able to take over Ukraine. It will not be able to um, demilitarize Ukraine. Rather, it's created a Ukrainian nationalism that will remain in place, and it'll be very hostile to Russian interests. In addition to that, Russia has increased the size of NATO. Not that I think that the increase in NATO was ever Russia's initial trigger. Rather, it's that's been demonstrated, amply demonstrated, by the fact that Russia has used most of its military assets in Ukraine and really denuding the borders with NATO of any kind of substantial force. It's even denuded its own border areas, as we see by the Kirk's invasion that Ukraine has begun and has prosecuted successfully so far. We'll see how far that incursion, that invasion of Russian territory will go in the next few days and weeks. I think, though, that Russia is basically overstretched its military resources, and it will not be able to respond effectively. Um, Therefore, I think in the end, Russia will suffer a significant strategic defeat. It's already suffered that defeat. And that was my initial uh, analysis back 2.5 years ago. Um, the situation for Russia is dire. I don't think Putin will survive this war. I think he'll either be retired, removed from office, and allowed to live in splendid retirement, or he'll be eliminated. It all depends. I think his power, his grip on power in Russia is slowly being eroded and by significant failures, political and military. I don't think that Putin will survive it. In addition, the elections this year, I think, will be of some significance, but ultimately, even if the United States ceases to support Ukraine, as long as you have an open border with Poland and the Baltic states and Romania, particularly the Poles and the Baltics, are determined that Ukraine will not lose. And given that, it reminds me of the situation in Vietnam, where you had porous borders and there was significant support for the North Vietnamese coming through those borders that the United States was unable to stop, and therefore it resulted in the prolonged war and ultimate defeat for the United States. This is a very similar situation. As long as Poland is determined to support Ukraine, I think the Russian cause, even those eastern oblasts, will be dire. And I don't think that Putin can succeed by just taking over a few eastern oblasts, some of which he hasn't even taken, and certainly none of the major provincial capitals have been taken. I think if the United States ceases to support, it will prolong the war, but it ultimately will result in Putin's demise and Russia's defeat. And in fact, if you see the incursion into Kursk by the Ukrainians, it reminds me of an Incheon landing. Incheon, you'll remember, was MacArthur's end run around the North Koreans in the Korean War. September 10th to the 19th, 1950, Douglas MacArthur engineered an end run around the North Koreans who were besieging Pusan and threatening to break through the Pusan defenses in southern Korea. MacArthur was able to end run and take the North Korean forces in the rear. Excuse for that. The situation very similar to what happened in Incheon. The situation in Kursk is because the Ukrainians have managed to conduct a successful end run around the defenses and the besieged areas in the very extensive 1,200 kilometer um, front line. I think we'll see how successful this is in the next few days and weeks, but it points out that Russia is stretched overly thin its military resources. So I think that Putin's overall historic plan to reconstitute the Soviet Union or the Russian Empire is going to crash on the shoals of reality. Uh, that's all I have for the moment. I will try to continue some more updating of this situation, as you'll forgive my poor technical means. I run a very sparse operation here, but I just wanted to give you my thoughts on the current situation in Ukraine. Uh, I take my hat off to Colonel General Sirski, who seems to be brilliantly prosecuting the war, and just point once again at the incompetence of the Russian military and the Russian system overall, where theft, lying, and corruption are the mainstays. Again, so long.